Among the floating cities of Neptune, a hidden enemy awoke after millennia. The sun was just a pale dot in the dark expanse above Neptune, its light barely reaching the floating cities that hovered above the gas giant's swirling blue clouds. These cities were marvels of human engineering, tethered to nothing but their own anti-gravity cores, drifting gracefully over storms that could swallow continents on Earth. Among the cities, Ardent Station shone the brightest. Its glass domes reflected the faint light of distant stars, and its streets were alive with humans and androids moving in harmony. Children laughed as they floated along low-gravity walkways, and merchants traded exotic goods mined from Neptune's icy moons. From the outside, it seemed a perfect society, peaceful, advanced, untouchable. But beneath the beauty of Ardent Station, something ancient stirred. Something that had lain dormant for thousands of years in the frozen depths of Neptune's atmosphere. Something that had been waiting for the right moment to awaken. Dr. Selene Mara, chief xenobiologist of Ardent Station, was the first to notice the anomaly. It started as a faint energy reading on her instruments, a ripple in the atmospheric currents that didn't match any known phenomena. She frowned as she adjusted the sensors, her brow furrowing. "This isn't natural," she muttered. "These readings, they are too regular. Too deliberate." Her assistant, a young engineer named Kale, leaned over her shoulder. "Deliberate? You mean life?" "Not life as we know it," Selene replied, her voice low. "Something older. Something that might have been here before humans even dreamed of the stars." Meanwhile, in the city's control hub, Commander Rylan Voss monitored the outer perimeter. Sensors had begun to pick up strange distortions in the lower atmosphere, far below the city. At first, they were dismissed as glitches. Neptune storms often played tricks on instruments. But the disturbances were growing stronger, forming patterns that could no longer be ignored. "Commander," his second-in-command said nervously, "there's something down there. I don't know what it is, but it's moving, and it's enormous." Ryland's jaw tightened. "Alert the scientific teams. And make sure the city's defense grid is ready. I don't care what it is, we're not taking any chances." As the floating city drifted above Neptune's turbulent clouds, a shadow emerged from the depths. Something massive, with shapes that defied human understanding, began to rise toward the surface. It had waited through millennia of icy darkness, forgotten by history and erased from memory, and now it moved with purpose. Down in the lower laboratories, Selene's instruments screamed warnings. "Energy signatures are sentient," she whispered. "It's alive, and it knows we're here." Kale's eyes widened. "Alive? Selene, you mean?" "Yes," she interrupted, her voice trembling slightly. "A predator that has been sleeping for thousands of years. And it has just woken up." Far below, in the depths of Neptune's storms, something ancient opened its eyes. A pulse of energy radiated outward, brushing against the floating cities above like a ghostly hand. The city shuddered slightly, and alarms began to blare. Commander Voss gripped the edge of the control panel. "All units, report," he barked. "This is not a drill." From the icy depths, the hidden enemy moved with terrifying intelligence. It had survived millennia by hiding in plain sight, unnoticed under the storms. And now, finally awake, it would begin its assault, not out of hatred, but out of instinct, and a desire to reclaim what had once been its dominion. The floating cities of Neptune had flourished for centuries, isolated from the wars and struggles of Earth. But they had never faced something like this. And as the first tendrils of the ancient entity reached toward Ardent Station, one truth became chillingly clear: survival would demand more than technology, more than courage. It would demand unity against a force older than humanity itself. The alarms echoed through Ardent Station, bouncing off glass walls and steel beams, mixing with the low hum of the city's anti-gravity cores. Citizens floated helplessly in corridors, their expressions a mixture of fear and confusion. Some clung to walls and railings, while others tried to reach their loved ones. Commander Rylan Voss moved through the chaos with practiced precision. His uniform was crisp, his movements calm, but his mind raced. "All units, mobilize defense drones to sectors 5 through 9. Keep civilians away from windows and observation decks. I want visual confirmation of what's below before we engage." In the observation dome, Selene Mara and Kale watched the storm below through reinforced glass. The patterns in the clouds were no longer just ripples, they were shadows, vast shapes moving with a deliberate rhythm. "It's enormous," Kale whispered, gripping the railing. "It's shaping the clouds itself." Look at the way the storms twist around it.
Selene adjusted her instruments frantically.
It's intelligent, Kale.
It knows we're watching.
That energy pulse, it's scanning the city, testing defenses, learning. Whatever this is, it's a predator, and we're the prey. Far below, the creature began to rise higher, its colossal mass forcing the atmosphere into roiling spirals. Lightning arced across Neptune's blue clouds as the entity's movements caused electrical discharges that lit the skies. The city's defense sensors picked up strange readings, energy signatures that did not match any human or alien technology, yet they reacted to the drone's presence as if anticipating each move. Commander Voss' voice cracked over the intercom. All drones engage, but maintain formation.
Do not underestimate it.
Selene, report your readings. Selene's fingers flew across the console. The energy field around it is adaptive. Weapons fire, even at low intensity, is being absorbed and redirected. Conventional attacks will do nothing. We need to think differently, maybe lure it away from the city.
Kale's eyes widened.
You mean, we can't fight it?
Selene shook her head. Not yet. Not with what we have.
If we confront it head-on, we lose everything. Meanwhile, the first tendrils of the ancient entity breached the upper atmosphere. They were enormous, shimmering with a strange iridescence, like liquid metal twisting in impossible ways. They reached toward the city, brushing against floating platforms, snapping drones out of the air, and causing a cascade of alarms. One of the tendrils struck the observation dome, rattling the glass and sending floating debris spinning through the low-gravity environment. Citizens screamed and drifted helplessly, some trapped by floating furniture.
Evacuate! Ryland shouted.
All non-essential personnel to shelters.
Do not engage directly. Selene grabbed Kale by the arm.
We need to understand it, Kale. If we panic, we're done. I can analyze the energy it's emitting, maybe find a weakness.
Kale nodded, fear in his eyes.
Right. Just, don't get eaten, okay? Selene gave him a small, tense smile before returning to her console. Her screen was alive with graphs, energy readings, and shifting patterns. The entity's pulses were not random, they formed sequences, almost like a language. She leaned closer, realizing that the creature was communicating, or at least trying to. This is incredible, Selene muttered. It's not attacking mindlessly, it's probing, testing. It might understand us, or it might be studying the city to destroy it efficiently. Suddenly, the city shook violently as a massive shadow passed over it. People screamed, clinging to walls and each other. The city's power grid flickered, and emergency lights bathed the corridors in red. The creature's energy tendrils were everywhere, wrapping around floating platforms, tearing apart structures designed to withstand Neptune's fiercest storms.
Ryland gritted his teeth. Status report, he barked.
A young officer responded, voice shaking. Damage is extensive, sir.
Drones are failing. Observation decks are compromised.
Its tendrils, Don't finish that sentence. Ryland cut him off, moving toward the nearest control panel. We adapt. That's what humans do. Selene's console emitted a high-pitched alarm. It's responding to our sensors. Every adjustment we make, it changes its behavior immediately. It's learning from us. Kale looked at her in horror.
You mean, it's smart? Selene swallowed hard. More than smart. It's ancient. And it's awake now.
After millennia, nothing can stop it, not by force alone. The creature's presence became undeniable. Its massive form, still mostly hidden beneath the storm clouds, radiated a power that made even the city's gravity fields feel weak. Selene's instruments showed that the entity was not just alive, it was aware, patient, and calculating. Ryland clenched his fists. Then we don't just survive by fighting. We survive by outthinking it. All units, gather data. Scientific teams, find its patterns. Engineering teams, reinforce shelters and shields. I want every mind working at full capacity. It doesn't matter how long it takes, we survive, or we're done. As the city's inhabitants scrambled for safety, the first faint whisper of realization spread through Selene's mind. The enemy wasn't just below the clouds, it was inside their strategies, inside their fears, waiting to exploit every weakness. And above the roiling storms of Neptune, the floating city of Ardent Station hung suspended, fragile and bright, like a single candle in a cosmic hurricane. Somewhere deep below, The ancient enemy observed, silent, patient, and unstoppable. Ardent Station trembled under the weight of Neptune's storms and the presence of the ancient entity. The city's shields groaned as they absorbed energy pulses from below. Fires broke out in the outer residential sectors, and the low-gravity walkways became hazardous, floating debris forming deadly obstacles. Commander Rylan Voss moved through the emergency command center, issuing orders with precision. Engineering teams, focus on shield reinforcement. Scientific teams, I want continuous readings on that thing. Civilian evacuation routes, now. Selene Mara's fingers flew over her console. Her eyes were wide, her mind racing as she analyzed the energy patterns from the depths. It's changing, she murmured. Every time we fire drones or adjust the shields, it adapts. It's learning our defenses faster than we can respond. Kale hovered beside her, pale but determined. So what do we do? Keep running in circles.
Selene shook her head. No. Running will only give it time.
If we can predict its next move, maybe we can outsmart it. We need to find a pattern in the way it attacks, something we can exploit. Below the city, the ancient entity pulsed and shifted, enormous tendrils stretching like the arms of a storm god. It emitted low-frequency vibrations that rattled metal and glass, forcing drones to spin out of control. It was intelligent, testing the city's response, learning how to manipulate the floating structures and the humans above. Rylan's voice cut through the chaos over the intercom.
Selene, I need options. Not analysis. Options. Selene took a deep breath.
We might be able to communicate with it. If it's intelligent, and I believe it is, those energy pulses are its language.
We can try to send signals back. Kale blinked.
You mean, talk to it? Yes, Selene said firmly. If we can establish communication, we might negotiate. Or at least distract it long enough to protect the city. We have no weapons capable of defeating it directly.
Rylan narrowed his eyes. Then make it happen. And make it fast.
In the observation dome, Selene calibrated her instruments. The tendrils reached higher, brushing against the edges of the city, twisting platforms and tearing cables. The energy readings pulsed in rhythmic patterns, almost like a heartbeat. Kale, Selene said. See these fluctuations?
That's its attention span.
It focuses here, then there, then back again. If we mimic the pulses, we might be able to guide it, or slow it down. Kale hesitated. Guide it, where? Anywhere but the city, Selene said. Into the storms, deeper into Neptune's atmosphere, or at least keep it distracted while we strengthen defenses.
Rylan's voice came over the comm again. Make it work.
The city's holding, but not for long.
I don't want
to wake up tomorrow and find half of Ardent gone. Selene's hands danced across her console, sending carefully timed energy pulses into the storm below. The tendrils paused, quivering, as if recognizing the signal. For a moment, it seemed to hesitate. Then, slowly, it shifted direction, retreating slightly from the city's outer sectors. Kale's eyes widened. It's working. Yes, Selene whispered. But it's cautious.
It's testing us too.
If we push too hard, it could become aggressive again. Rylan allowed himself a brief nod of approval.
Good work. Keep it occupied.
Engineering teams, double shield output. Scientific teams, continue analyzing those patterns. We need an exit strategy, just in case. Meanwhile, in the lower atmosphere, the entity seemed to sense the humans' intentions. Its tendrils pulsed, interacting with the signals Selene had sent. It was not malicious in the human sense, it was a creature of instinct, memory, and survival, awakened after millennia. But it was immensely powerful, and its curiosity made it dangerous. Selene's eyes narrowed as she studied the patterns. It's learning from us, but we can learn from it. If we understand its behavior, we might be able to predict where it will strike next. Kale floated closer, tense. So, we're basically in a dance with a monster the size of a city. Selene gave him a small, wry smile.
Exactly.
And one misstep could cost everything. Outside, the floating city shimmered against the violent blues and purples of Neptune's storms. Lightning arced across clouds as the entity moved through them with intelligence and purpose. It was awake, aware, and calculating. Yet, for the first time in millennia, it had found opposition. an intelligent species that could anticipate its moves, respond to its signals, and survive its power. The first night over Neptune's floating cities passed with tense vigilance. Drones patrolled the outer perimeter, energy shields glowed, and scientists continued to study the ancient enemy below. No one slept, but for a brief moment, humanity had learned something crucial. Survival was not impossible. As dawn, or what passed for dawn above Neptune, broke over the stormy clouds, Selene realized the challenge ahead. This enemy was not simply a force of destruction. It was a puzzle, a mind older than history, and it would take every ounce of intelligence, courage, and unity to keep the floating cities safe. And far below, in the swirling depths, the hidden enemy observed the humans above. It had awoken after millennia of slumber, but now it was learning something new. There was resistance in the stars, and resistance was dangerous. The floating cities of Neptune had survived the first night, but the calm was deceptive. Ardent Station's streets were littered with debris. Emergency lights painted red streaks across glass walkways, and citizens moved cautiously, aware that the ancient enemy was still awake and learning. In the command center, Commander Rylan Voss studied a holographic projection of the storm below. Tendrils reached through the clouds, probing, testing, and occasionally striking with destructive precision. The energy readings were still unlike anything humans had seen. "Status?" Rylan asked, voice sharp. An officer answered, "Shields are holding at 75% efficiency, sir. We've reinforced critical sectors, but outer platforms remain vulnerable. The entity's behavior is unpredictable. It adapts faster than our drones can react." Rylan clenched his fists. "Then we need to think bigger. Selene, what do you have?" Selene Mara leaned over her console, eyes scanning data streams. "It's reacting to our pulses, yes, but it's more than just intelligence. Its behavior suggests memory, patterns from centuries, maybe millennia, of survival. This is no random predator. It's ancient, and it's not native to Neptune. It was buried here, maybe intentionally."
Kale frowned. "Buried?
"You mean, someone put it here?"
"Possibly," Selene said.
"Or it could be a relic of a time before humans existed. Either way, it's dangerous because it remembers.
And it can learn."
Rylan ran a hand through his hair. "Great. An immortal, hyper-intelligent predator buried for millennia, and now it's awake. Any ideas how to stop it?"
Selene hesitated.
"Direct confrontation will fail. Conventional weapons have no effect. But if we understand its origin, we might find a weakness. Something in its history, or its biology, that makes it vulnerable to reasoning or manipulation." Kale looked uneasy. "Manipulation? You mean we're going to trick a city-sized alien monster?"
Selene didn't answer.
She was already scanning historical archives, energy records, and ancient sonar data from Neptune's lower atmosphere. Patterns began to emerge, signals that predated human colonization, faint traces of something buried beneath the ice clouds, something deliberately left in stasis. Meanwhile, outside the station, the entity intensified its attacks. One massive tendril struck the edge of a residential platform, snapping structural supports and sending people tumbling in low gravity. Drones tried to intercept, but the creature anticipated each move, dismantling defenses with chilling precision.
Rylan barked orders.
"All non-essential personnel, shelters now. Engineering teams, deploy mobile shields along the outer sectors. Scientific teams, track every pulse, every pattern. It's our only way to predict its movements." Selene's console lit up with new readings. "Look at this," she said, pointing at the screen. "Its energy pulses form sequences, almost like a language. And I think it's trying to communicate, or at least understand us." Kale squinted at the screen. "So, it's smart enough to speak, but not smart enough to kill us instantly."
Selene nodded.
"It's testing us.
Measuring.
Waiting. This is not mindless aggression, it's strategy. And if we can respond strategically, we might survive." As the day progressed, Ardent Station began a delicate balancing act. Drones patrolled and distracted the tendrils, shield generators hummed under maximum load, and Selene sent carefully timed energy pulses into the storm below. The entity paused, quivering at the signals, as if studying the human's intentions.
Then, a breakthrough came.
Selene noticed a pattern in the tendrils' movements. They avoided a specific frequency of energy in the city's shield grid, almost instinctively. "Kale," she whispered, "if we amplify this frequency, we might be able to repel it, Or at least push it back temporarily.
Kale's eyes widened. You mean a counter-signal?
Like a reverse pulse.
Yes. It's risky, Selene admitted.
If I miscalculate, it could provoke the entity, make it strike harder. But it's the only chance we have to keep the city intact long enough to learn more about it.
Rylan weighed her words.
Do it.
I don't want to wake up to a destroyed city tomorrow.
We'll take the risk. Selene adjusted the controls, amplifying the energy pulses in precise intervals. The tendrils hesitated, then recoiled slightly, rippling through the storm like a creature disturbed. The city shuddered as the entity adjusted, but for the first time, humans had forced it to respond to them, not just instinctively, but with calculated movement. Kale exhaled in relief. It worked, for now. Selene's eyes remained on the console, scanning the patterns.
This only buys us time.
I need to understand its origin. If we know where it came from, or why it was buried here, we might find a permanent solution. Otherwise, she trailed off, the unspoken truth heavy in the air. Rylan's gaze turned toward the storm. Otherwise, we fight until we die.
And that's not an option.
As night fell above Neptune once again, the floating cities shone like fragile jewels against the dark, stormy expanse. Below, the ancient enemy pulsed, quivered, and shifted.
It was learning.
And humans, for the first time, realized that understanding it might be their only chance at survival. Deep within the swirling clouds, the entity stirred, not in anger, but in anticipation. Something had changed in the world above. Something it had not expected, resistance. The calm after Selene's counterpulse was deceptive. The entity, though momentarily deterred, began to adapt with frightening speed. Its tendrils moved with renewed purpose, slicing through Neptune's storms and reaching toward the floating city with precision. Commander Rylan Voss stood at the observation dome, watching the shadows stretch and coil below. It's learning faster than we can keep up, he said, jaw tight.
We need more than pulses.
We need to understand what it wants, and why it's here. Selene's fingers flew across her console, analyzing data streams from multiple sensors. It's ancient, far older than any human civilization. But these signals I've detected, they are not just random. They are structured. Almost like a map or a message embedded in its energy. If we decode it, we might understand its purpose. Kale floated beside her, looking pale but determined. A message? From a monster the size of a city.
Selene nodded.
Not a monster, Kale.
A being.
A survivor. And survivors always have reasons. Meanwhile, the entity escalated its assault. Entire platforms trembled under the force of its tendrils, cutting through reinforced structures as if they were paper. Drones intercepted, but they were torn apart, shredded by energy pulses that bent metal and glass alike. Citizens huddled in shelters, terrified, watching the city groan under the pressure.
Rylan barked orders over the intercom.
All units, focus on shielding key sectors. Evacuation routes must remain open. We can't let panic spread. Engineering teams, adjust the pulse frequencies. Selene's countersignal worked once. We'll need it again. Selene's eyes narrowed as she studied the entity's movements.
It's testing us.
Every strike, every withdrawal, it's calculating our responses. And I think it's reacting to something, our fear, our hesitation. If we hesitate, it gains the advantage. If we act decisively, we might guide it.
Kale swallowed hard.
So, we're dancing with a giant, and our nerves are part of the dance.
Exactly, Selene said. We can't just defend. We have to control the rhythm. And I think I've found the key. She pointed to a series of energy spikes deep in the storm below.
They formed an intricate pattern, almost like a constellation, moving in synchronization with the tendrils. These spikes, they are ancient markers. Whatever this creature is, it's linked to them. I think it was buried here intentionally, tied to these energy nodes. If we can disrupt them or manipulate their sequence, we might be able to influence its behavior more directly.
Rylan's eyes narrowed. Then we do that.
Kale, assist Selene. Engineering, prepare mobile pulse amplifiers. We're taking the fight to it. As the teams worked feverishly, the entity's movements became more aggressive. One massive tendril struck a research platform, sending instruments and debris spinning in low gravity. A fire erupted, and alarms screamed. Civilians in nearby corridors clung to walls and railings, panicking as the city shuddered violently.
Selene adjusted the pulse frequencies.
Steady, steady, now.
A ripple of energy shot into the storm below.
The tendrils paused mid-strike, quivering as if confused. The entity emitted a low-frequency hum, vibrating through the city and resonating in the bones of every human inside. Then, slowly, it shifted direction, withdrawing from the most vulnerable sectors.
Kale exhaled sharply.
It worked, again.
Selene didn't relax. Not completely.
It's learning from our signals. We can't let it adapt too far, or this method will fail.
Ryland's jaw tightened.
Then we escalate. We have to understand it before it learns us too well.
Selene, focus on decoding the markers. Kale, coordinate with engineering.
We're going deeper, into its territory. As the city's drones and pulse amplifiers maintained the delicate counterbalance, Selene's console beeped urgently.
I've decoded part of the pattern, she exclaimed.
These energy nodes, they are not just markers.
They are part of its memory.
Whoever buried it here linked its awareness to these nodes. If we disrupt them carefully, we might access its memory, maybe even control its actions temporarily.
Ryland's eyes lit with grim determination. Then that's our next move.
We survive tonight, and tomorrow, we go on the offensive, carefully. Far below, in the swirling depths of Neptune's storms, the ancient entity pulsed. Its tendrils quivered in response to the human signals, testing, analyzing, aware of their attempts to influence it. It was awake, intelligent, and patient, yet it was learning something new. The humans above were clever, unpredictable, and fearless. And above the storms, Ardent Station held firm, battered but unbroken, as its inhabitants prepared for the next phase of a battle that was no longer just about survival. It was about understanding, strategy, and the first steps toward controlling an enemy that had slept for millennia. The floating city of Ardent Station had endured another grueling cycle of Neptune's storms. Structural reinforcements held, but the toll on both people and machinery was visible. Smoke curled from damaged platforms, and low-gravity walkways were littered with debris from the previous attacks. The citizens moved cautiously, knowing that the ancient enemy below was still awake and learning. In the command center, Commander Ryland Voss stood with Selene Mara and Kale, reviewing the latest data. The energy nodes, Ryland said, his voice tight. Are we ready to attempt what you proposed? Selene's hands hovered over the console, analyzing the complex patterns of the entity's energy signatures. We have to be precise. If we misalign even one node, it could provoke the entity into full aggression. But if we get it right, we can access its memory, maybe even guide its actions temporarily.
Kale swallowed hard.
So, we're basically poking a city-sized alien monster awake again, but this time with our hands on its mind.
Selene gave him a tense smile. Exactly.
And we don't have the luxury of mistakes. Outside, the storm roared, dark clouds twisting as the entity tested the city's defenses. Its tendrils moved like enormous serpents, probing, scanning, and occasionally striking at the outer platforms. Drones intercepted when possible, but they were shredded almost immediately. The creature's intelligence was terrifyingly obvious. It learned from each attack, countering the city's moves with precision.
Selene began synchronizing the pulse amplifiers with the energy nodes below.
Lights flickered across the city as the amplifiers hummed to life. We're creating a resonance, she explained. It will reach the entity's memory nodes directly. It might be disoriented at first, but then, we can guide it. Ryland nodded, giving the order. Engineering, maintain the resonance.
Shields at maximum.
Everyone else, be ready for anything. Kale watched the storm, tense. Anything like what?
Selene didn't answer immediately.
She was focused, eyes scanning the incoming energy patterns.
It might panic. It might strike harder.
It might try to escape.
But we have a chance to understand it.
That's all we can do. A pulse surged from the amplifiers, and the storm below reacted immediately. Tendrils quivered, moving erratically, and the entity emitted a deep, resonating hum that vibrated through the city. Citizens felt it in their bones as low-frequency waves swept through Ardent Station. It's responding,
Selene shouted.
It's disoriented. The resonance is affecting its memory nodes.
Kale exhaled in relief.
So we actually pulled it off. Temporarily, Selene warned.
We have a short window.
I can probe its memory patterns, but we need to act fast.
Ryland's jaw tightened. Then do it.
Whatever you find, We use it. No hesitation. Selene accessed the memory nodes through the resonance. Images flashed on her console. Neptune long before human colonization, structures that resembled ancient temples beneath the storms, energy channels glowing with unfamiliar light, and symbols that hinted at a civilization lost to time. The entity's origins were older than any human record. It had been deliberately buried, possibly imprisoned, to prevent it from influencing the galaxy.
It was placed here as a safeguard, Selene murmured. Someone, or something, knew it was dangerous.
They buried it, connected it to these nodes, and left it to sleep for millennia. But now it's awake.
Ryland's eyes narrowed. And now it's our problem.
Can we control it?
Selene hesitated. Not completely.
But we can guide it. We can slow it down, maybe even prevent it from destroying the city entirely. If we can understand its instincts and patterns, we can predict its next move. Suddenly, a massive tendril lashed out, striking a research platform. The resonance pulsed through it, and the entity recoiled, almost as if resisting intrusion into its memory. Alarms blared as the platform's instruments shattered, floating debris scattering across low-gravity corridors.
Ryland barked orders.
All units, focus on protecting critical sectors. Keep the resonance stable. Selene's fingers flew over the console. It's fighting the memory probes. Its intelligence, it's actively resisting. We have to adapt or it will break free from our control.
Kale's eyes widened.
It's like it knows we're inside its mind.
Yes, Selene said grimly.
And it's smart enough to respond. That's why we have to be faster, more precise, and more coordinated than ever. If we fail, the city won't survive. 4 hours, they worked tirelessly, maintaining resonance while observing the entity's responses. Slowly, the tendrils stopped their chaotic strikes. The creature pulsed, quivered, and then shifted its movements, almost as if it were listening. The city trembled under the immense energy of the storm, but a fragile balance had been established. Ryland exhaled, tension etched into his features. We did it, for now. But this is only the beginning.
Selene, keep probing. Kale, maintain the amplifiers.
Everyone else, stay ready. Far below, in the swirling storms of Neptune, the ancient enemy paused. It had been awakened, disturbed, and guided, but it was also learning. Its memory was vast, its intelligence unmatched. And as it pulsed in the storm, it began to remember not only its past but the humans above, their ingenuity, their courage, and their determination to survive. And for the first time in millennia, the ancient enemy realized that it might not be the only force in the storm. The floating city of Ardent Station hung precariously above Neptune's storm-churned clouds. After hours of maintaining the resonance with the entity's memory nodes, the city had brought a fragile reprieve, but the sense of unease was palpable. Every citizen, every drone, every engineer knew that the ancient enemy was not defeated, only delayed. Commander Ryland Voss stood at the observation dome, eyes scanning the storm below. The tendrils had slowed, curling cautiously, almost as if testing their surroundings. But the sheer scale of the entity's presence was terrifying. It was not merely reacting, it was strategizing. Selene Mara worked furiously at her console. It's adapting, she said, voice tense. The resonance affected it, yes, but now it's learning from our signals. It's beginning to anticipate the pulse patterns. If we don't change tactics, the next strike could be catastrophic. Kale floated near her, looking pale but alert. So, we've just made it smarter.
Yes, Selene admitted. But that's also an advantage.
The more it adapts, the more patterns we can study. We can predict its behavior, if we act fast and coordinated.
Ryland's gaze hardened. Then we act.
Engineering teams, modify the pulse frequencies. Scientific teams, analyze the adaptations. Every mind is needed. This city survives tonight, no matter what.
Below, the storm shifted.
Tendrils that had curled cautiously now lashed out again, striking reinforced platforms and tearing through observation decks.
Drones intercepted where possible, but many were shredded in seconds.
The entity's intelligence was terrifying. Each strike was precise, calculated, and terrifyingly efficient. Selene noticed a new sequence in the energy patterns. It's forming attack cycles, she shouted. Every time we send pulses, it pauses, then strikes in a coordinated manner. We can predict its next move, just barely.
Ryland barked orders.
All units, Adjust to predicted impact points. Evacuate civilians to reinforced sectors.
Drones, draw its attention to decoy zones.
We're going to guide its next move. Kale's hands trembled as he manipulated the pulse amplifiers. This is insane. We're basically playing chess with a monster the size of the city.
Selene didn't answer.
Her eyes were locked on the console as the energy spikes and tendrils intertwined like a living map. Slowly, patterns emerged, like the creature itself was revealing its strategy. Then, with a massive surge, one of the entity's tendrils struck the central plaza of the city. Reinforced shields held, but the impact sent shockwaves across Ardent Station. Citizens clung to walls, debris floated dangerously, and alarms screamed through every sector. Ryland's voice boomed over the intercom. Focus.
Shields stabilized.
Deploy counterpulses, now. Selene amplified the resonance pulses, targeting specific energy nodes below. The tendrils quivered, pausing mid-strike. The city shook, and for a moment, a tense silence fell. Then the entity shifted, withdrawing slightly, as if acknowledging the humans' countermeasures.
Kale exhaled sharply.
It's working, again. Yes, Selene said, though her voice carried no relief.
But it's learning. It's beginning to anticipate our countermeasures. We can't keep this up indefinitely.
We need a solution, not just temporary survival.
Ryland's eyes narrowed. Then we find it.
Whatever buried this thing, whatever linked it to the nodes, we uncover it, or this city will be destroyed. Selene's fingers danced across her console. There's something deeper. Coordinates within the energy nodes, hidden patterns I didn't notice before. I think they point to a central origin point beneath the storm. If we can reach it, we might fully understand, or even neutralize, the entity.
Ryland's jaw tightened.
Then that's the next move. Kale, prep the mobile pulse units.
Selene, guide me.
We're going into the storm itself. As the floating city braced for another wave of assaults, the entity pulsed violently, tendrils curling like ancient serpents. It had learned, it had adapted, and it had begun to fight back with intelligence that matched or even surpassed human strategy. Yet, for the first time, it faced an opponent that could understand it, anticipate it, and manipulate it. The stage was set for the final confrontation, a battle not of brute force, but of strategy, intelligence, and survival. Far below, in the swirling depths of Neptune's atmosphere, the ancient enemy pulsed with awareness. It was awake, it was learning, and it was beginning to recognize the humans above, not merely as prey, but as worthy adversaries. Above the storm, Ardent Station trembled but endured. Its defenders had bought time, uncovered clues, and prepared for the next step. A descent into the heart of the storm, where the creature's origins and the city's survival would collide in a test of courage, ingenuity, and the will to survive. The storm raged violently beneath Ardent Station, clouds twisting like living beasts, lightning arcing across the swirling chaos. Commander Ryland Voss, Selene Mara, and Kale stood in the observation dome, watching the tendrils of the ancient entity writhe with awareness and intelligence. Every strike had purpose, every movement was calculated. And yet, the humans were ready. Selene's fingers flew across her console, syncing the mobile pulse units with the energy nodes below. We've traced the central origin point, she said, voice tense. It's a massive energy core buried deep beneath Neptune's atmosphere. If we can reach it and stabilize the nodes, we can either control the entity, or force it back into dormancy.
Ryland's jaw tightened.
Then we move. Kale, prep the pulse amplifiers for full output. Everyone else, brace for turbulence. Outside, the storm churned with terrifying intensity. Tendrils lashed outward, smashing outer platforms and tearing apart drones. Citizens huddled in reinforced shelters, feeling the vibrations of the ancient enemy's power resonate through every structure. Selene sent a calibrated pulse into the storm. The tendrils paused mid-strike, quivering as if aware of her intrusion. It's sensing us, she whispered. We have to be precise. One misstep and it could obliterate the city.
Ryland nodded grimly.
Do it. The pulse amplified, cutting through the storm and stabilizing a path toward the central energy core. Slowly, the tendrils withdrew from the city, drawn toward the resonance. Ardent Station shuddered under the immense energy, but the path was clear. Kale floated beside Selene, wide-eyed. We're actually guiding it, like a shepherd. Yes, Selene said, her eyes locked on the console.
But it's also watching us.
Every adjustment, every pulse,
It's learning.
We have one chance to reach the core and secure survival. The city's drones formed protective formations around the outer platforms, diverting stray tendrils while the humans guided the resonance. The storm intensified, and lightning arced across the sky, but the team pressed forward, focused and determined. Finally, the energy core appeared, an enormous, glowing structure buried in the depths, pulsing with raw, ancient power. Tendrils converged on it, feeding energy into the network that connected to the entity above. Selene adjusted the pulse frequencies with extreme precision, stabilizing the core and linking it with the mobile amplifiers. "It's working," she said, voice shaking with tension and awe. "The entity, it's responding. It's slowing, stabilizing. The resonance is reaching its mind fully."
Ryland's eyes narrowed. "Then we finish this.
Push it back into dormancy, or at least contain it." Selene initiated the final sequence. Energy pulses shot through the core, resonating across the nodes and into the entity's consciousness. The tendrils quivered, then paused, curling around the energy spikes as if surrendering to the guidance. The storm roared, but slowly, the chaos began to subside. Kale let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. It's stopping." Selene's eyes never left the console.
"Not completely.
"But it's dormant enough.
We've contained it, forced it into a controlled slumber.
If the resonance fails, it could wake again. But for now, the city is safe."
Ryland exhaled heavily.
"Then we rebuild, reinforce, and make sure it never threatens us again. Ardent Station survived, and so did we."
Outside, the storm began to calm.
The tendrils retreated beneath Neptune's clouds, curling into stillness. Lightning flickered one last time across the sky, then faded. The floating city, battered but intact, hovered quietly above the turbulent atmosphere. Selene leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. "It's incredible. After millennia, it awakened, tested us, and now, we understand it. We can coexist, as long as we respect its nature and maintain the resonance."
Kale smiled weakly. "I can't believe we survived."
"And we actually talked to a monster the size of a city."
Ryland's gaze swept across the calming storm. "We did more than survive. We learned."
"And we proved that even against the oldest, most powerful forces in the universe, humans can endure, if we think, adapt, and stand together." For the first time in countless hours, the city fell silent. Citizens emerged from shelters, cautiously looking at the sky, realizing that the entity below was no longer an immediate threat. Ardent Station had faced a force older than history itself, and survived. Deep beneath Neptune's clouds, the ancient entity pulsed faintly, dormant but aware, a relic of millennia past. It had tested the humans, learned from them, and retreated, but it had also left a mark. Above the storm, Ardent Station glowed faintly against the swirling blues and purples of Neptune's atmosphere, a fragile jewel in the cosmic tempest. Humanity had faced the impossible, and against all odds, they had endured. The floating city of Neptune was safe, for now. But the echoes of the ancient enemy's awakening would linger, a reminder that the universe held secrets older and more powerful than any civilization, and that survival demanded courage, intelligence, and unity against forces that had slept for millennia. And somewhere, deep within the storm, the entity pulsed, waiting, dreaming, and remembering.